Shermer, I don't think all's lost here in New York by any stretch. This team plays hard for him. They kept themselves in the game in the first half, and Minnesota was dominating it, made some plays on defense to get that done. This young quarterback's going to continue to grow, and the offense going to come along. I think they're making the right steps here in New York. They're just not ready yet for Minnesota.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy HP, and welcome back to the Unsportsmanlike Conduct Podcast, the podcast covering football and everything New York Giants. Episode 24, as I'm sure you can tell from the opening clip, is going to cover the 28-10 loss by the New York Giants to the Minnesota Vikings, a home Week 5 matchup at Metlife Stadium. Before I do get into my analysis of this game and my frustrations of this game, I want everyone to please subscribe to my YouTube page. Follow me on Instagram, that's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. And also I'm on Twitter, so please make sure you follow me on Twitter, that's _unsportsman. This game was really, really frustrating on many accounts. From the coaching staff, the Giants offense, and the Giants defense. I'm going to talk about it all in today's episode, and then after I do give my my analysis and my reactions to this matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, I want to talk about the Thursday night football matchup against the New England Patriots, and that'll come towards the end of this episode. But yeah, on all three accounts, the coaching staff, the New York Giants offense, and the New York Giants defense, it was just frustrating. Nothing was really clicking for us all game. There were just a lot of mistakes, not only from a coaching perspective, some missed plays here and there, and even some penalties that sort of resulted in us from not only gaining yards, but also giving up some more yards to the Minnesota Vikings. Before I do get really into detail, into depth of my analysis, I want to start off by giving up two themes. Daniel Jones is not the reason why we lost. I know he had a couple of bad throws, to Sterling Shepard that sort of could have resulted in not only touchdowns, but certainly big plays. And number two, the coaching staff needs to get their shit together. Pat Shermer needs to start calling better plays to generate more offensive yards and offensive points. And James Bettcher needs to get his stuff together and prevent offenses from scoring 25-plus points, because this is the fourth game in 5 weeks that this New York Giants defense has given up 28 or more points. Okay, so I want to start off with the New York Giants offense. We took a big blow early in the game where we lost Wayne Gallman to a concussion. Now, the most frustrating part about this is after we lost Saquon Barkley from a high ankle sprain, I don't feel like the New York Giants did enough due diligence and enough work to make sure that we have enough running back depth. It was almost as if they thought, okay, Saquon Barkley is out. We still have Wayne Gallman. He can sort of do the similar things as Saquon Barkley in terms of not only running, being a decent runner, but also catching the ball out of the backfield. I think they solely relied on Wayne Gallman and didn't sort of foresee that Wayne Gallman can also get hurt. I mean, if someone like Saquon Barkley, and everyone knows how Saquon Barkley is built, he's built like someone who's supernatural. If someone like that can get hurt and be out for a couple of weeks, then of course someone who's built like Wayne Gallman, your average running back, can get hurt as well. But nevertheless, I don't feel like the New York Giants prepared for even Wayne Gallman to get hurt, because instead we decided to sort of sign Hillman off the practice squad. And then we had Eli Penny as well. And those two running backs, I mean, let's be honest, folks, I don't think they'd make any other NFL roster. And if they were to be on another NFL roster, they'd definitely be on the practice squad, or probably be third or fourth string running backs, running backs who would never see the light of day. So the fact that those are your potential second string running backs behind Wayne Gallman, considering that Saquon Barkley is out, I mean, that just shows sort of the lack of effort and the lack of this is a lack of recognition of how important running back depth is by Dave Gettleman and management. I mean, running back is the position, in addition to the offensive line, you need depth at that position, because these are the positions in the NFL that get hurt the most. How many times all these fantasy football owners that played fantasy football religiously year in and year out have had a star running back that they've drafted early in the rounds get hurt and have to go run to the waiver wire and pick up that running back's backup? I mean, this is just common sense. They did no due diligence or real work to provide depth at that position. Instead, we're relying on Hillman and Eli Penny. And those two guys aren't guys that are going to be burning up the sideline to get you first downs. Those running backs aren't going to get you big plays. And we've shown it today because we had 20 total carries, including Daniel Jones rushes, for, 60 yards? I mean, that's not sufficient. You do not win football games by running 20 times and only resulting in 60 yards. But as a result of losing Wayne Gallman, we ended up becoming a one-dimensional offense. And as a result of becoming a one-dimensional offense, we became very easy to defend. We were so one-dimensional that Daniel Jones threw for 36 times. And now I know that some of that's also a result of being down, but we weren't down big for most of the game. For most of the game, we were within a score. We were probably within a score, maybe at 10 points at most down. We were within the game for most of it until the fourth quarter. Daniel Jones threw for 36 times because we didn't have a legitimate running back to supplement the losses of Saquon Barkley and then Wayne Gallman to concussion. I don't like when a quarterback throws over for more than 30 times because that lets me know that the coaching staff was unwilling to be creative and counter a passing game with a good running game. And I understand we didn't have the talent to run enough or even run well enough to draw good run plays. But I mean, when you lose two running backs, that's a testament to the fact that the Giants management did not prepare for this well enough. Daniel Jones threw for 36 times. And Shermer tried to counter a lack of a running game by considering that we lost Saquon Barkley and Wayne Gallman. Shermer tried to counter that by running many screen plays and many sweep plays. Now that's what sort of surprised me as well, because I don't think I've ever seen an NFL football game that has had that many screens and that many sweeps. For one, we don't have the running backs fast enough or good enough out of the backfield to even run as many screen plays as Shermer ran. Number two, our wide receivers aren't burners. So one, you're running screen plays for also wide receivers, and you're running these sweep plays for wide receivers to guys like Shepard and Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram is a tight end. He's not someone who's going to burn the top off of a defense. Why is he lining up there to do sweep plays? And there was only one time out of the many sweep plays, probably up to definitely more than 5, and definitely up to 10 total screen and sweep plays. Out of one of them, Evan Ingram probably got a first down or definitely a 9-yard gain from that sweep play. But other than that, nothing worked, and Shermer decided to continuously go back to those types of plays, which made no sense to me because you have guys like Golden Tate that can probably just outrun any linebacker there and any safety, any nickel cornerback. I mean, it's a matchup. And I'll get there. I'll get to the usage of Golden Tate, but I just want to focus on sort of the run game and sort of the and Shermer and calling all these screen plays and sweep plays. We don't have the personnel to do that. Our wide receivers aren't completely fast enough to run sweep plays, and our running backs, as a result of losing Gallman, can't run screen plays as well. So I'm not sure why Shermer continuously did that. And I understand at some point you lost Wayne Gallman, that's your second running back. You have to make an adjustment to see if you can get the same type of yardage you would typically get from Saquon Barkley and Wayne Gallman, but that didn't work, Shermer. Instead of thinking that your playbook is so good, that's why you think you can call every play, maybe take a step back, look at your personnel, and then revise your playbook, or cater your playbook, rather, to the personnel that you currently have. Sometimes I feel like Shermer and company make no adjustments. They think that they're too good of football geniuses and football coaches where they don't need to make adjustments to their personnel, and that they think their personnel needs to make adjustments to their playbook. We didn't see any creativity on the offense. We have Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, Evan Ingram, and Darius Slayton. 4 wide receivers who are more than capable of having big games and creating big plays. But where was Golden Tate? Golden Tate had 3 receptions for 13 yards. 2 of those receptions came in the fourth quarter when the Giants were already down 28-10. The first reception, I believe, came on the opening play, which was a screen play for 5 yards. I just don't understand. Why would you bring him in, give him so much money? I mean, Golden Tate was the guy that Dave Gettleman brought in after Giants fans were distraught when we traded OBJ. You bring him in to produce 3 receptions for 13 yards with only 6 targets? That's not a testament to Golden Tate and his talent. That's a testament to the play calling and how he was being used. He was severely underutilized, which is very disappointing. I like the 6 targets. 6 targets is fine because when you got guys like Shep and Ingram who are your number 1s and your number 2s, 6 targets is pretty good for Golden Tate. But 3 receptions for 13 yards? No, I want you to get 1 reception for 13 yards. If he had maybe 3 for 35, 3 for 40, I'd be happy with that. But it was just horrible usage for Golden Tate. But why are you paying him all this money for him to produce like that? And then, it just made no sense. There's just no creativity. You have 2 amazing guys who can run routes in the middle of the field. Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard. And we didn't see any of that. We didn't see Shurmur call a place to get these guys in space, catch the ball, and create yards after the catch. Because I want to talk about Sterling Shepard's stat line. 5 receptions for 49 yards. He did have 10 targets, though. He did have 10 targets. Obviously, Daniel Jones is looking for him. He is our number 1 wide receiver. But 5 receptions for 49 yards, you know what that means? That means little to no yards after the catch. The reason why that happens is because Daniel Jones is finding him in spaces where the DBs are right next to Sterling Shepard. I understand this is a West Coast offense, so there's going to be way more crossing routes than there are deep plays and deep shots. But you've got to be able to create plays where you can find Sterling Shepard in space in the middle of the field. Get him and create some mismatches where a linebacker ends up accidentally lining up across Sterling Shepard. Or a receiver who's a boundary corner ends up having to line up in the slot as a result of having Sterling Shepard line up in the slot. I know Mike Hughes I believe Mike Hughes might be their nickel corner or their slot corner for the most part. And I know he's a tough-nosed corner. I actually wanted the New York Giants to draft him last year. But, nevertheless, he's technically, Mike Hughes to me is still a rookie because he didn't play much last year due to an injury. You got to exploit that matchup a little bit more. And Mike Hughes had a great game. Don't get me wrong, but you got to exploit that matchup more the way other teams try to exploit the DeAndre Baker matchups. But 5 catches for 49 yards? When Sterling Shepard gets 5 catches, I expect that to hit 60 yards. He should be getting 5 receptions for 60 yards. Completely unreasonable. And this is what I'm talking about. I think, as the game goes on, the coaching staff should look at the statistics and see how their teams are doing. Couldn't Shurmur identify that Sterling Shepard isn't getting enough yards after the catch and that's where he specializes in? And maybe take a step back and say, let me draw up some plays where we can get him in space and get him some more yards after the catch. But no adjustments whatsoever on that part. And then I want to talk about Evan Ingram as well, which was even worse of a stat line than Sterling Shepard. Because he had 6 catches for 42 yards on 11 targets. Again, 11 targets, great number of targets. That shows that he's truly one of the more, one of the more options that Daniel Jones feels comfortable relying on. But 6 catches for 42 yards? If you get 6 catches, I want 6 catches for either 60 yards, between 60 to 75 yards. And I'm going to talk about one of the plays that they had designed up for Sterling Shepard that drove me nuts. But Shurmur, instead of having Evan Ingram run on sweep plays, why don't you create other plays where Sterling Shepard's in the middle of the field and safeties can't bring him down because he's too big for safeties and linebackers are too slow to guard him? You don't see guys like Gronkowski, guys like Travis Kelce, and I know Gronkowski's obviously retired, but just giving examples. Guys like Kittle and Zach Ertz and Travis Kelce having 6 for 42. Those guys get big yards for their receptions. Their receptions are meaningful. 5 for 49 by Sterling Shepard and 6 for 42 by Evan Ingram. Those aren't meaningful receptions. Those are garbage receptions. And I want to give a big kudos to Darius Slayton, who was found deep on his first career touchdown. That was one of the more brighter spots of the offense because, during the whole offseason, I sort of stated that Darius Slayton was going to be our big play guy. That was going to be our new deep threat. I sort of called him our little Deshaun Jackson. Now, he's nowhere near as fast. He didn't have, near of a 40 time that Deshaun Jackson had coming out of college, but that's what I thought was our deep threat, and he showed that today on a couple of plays, including that touchdown. But Shurmur's got to do a better job getting everyone involved. Every week in and week out, I want Golden Tate to go 5 for 40. And I want Sterling Shepard to get around the 7 receptions range, and I also want Evan Ingram to get around 7 receptions. Golden Tate should not be getting anything less than 5 receptions for 50 yards, to be honest. That's my expectation, especially for the money that we're giving him. I think it was like an $80 million contract as well. And again, I want to reiterate and emphasize, this was the guy that Dave Gallman brought in as sort of to throw New York Giants fans a bone for disappointing us for trading away OBJ. And then the next point I want to talk about was this offensive line, because this offensive line got killed all game. Obviously, we couldn't run the ball offensively. We didn't have good enough running backs to do so. So I'm not going to blame the offensive line on that for that part. But man, Daniel Jones was getting hit left and right. Daniel Jones got hit 8 times and took 4 sacks, and some of those sacks came on key drives, key plays, key 3rd down and 4th down plays. Unbelievable and unnecessary. Nate Soldier got killed by Everson Griffin. Had probably one of the worst games that I've ever seen from a tackle. And it's very unfortunate because we had tackle issues. We had issues at tackle. Remember Eric Flowers? We're throwing big money at Nate Soldier. Nate Soldier, you need to get your shit together, man. Daniel Jones got hit 8 times. And look, I know this Minnesota Vikings defense and this front 7 of theirs is a tough defense. But 8 quarterback hits and 4 sacks? This offensive line let Daniel Jones down. And believe it or not, Daniel Jones had a pretty good game despite a couple of plays where he was off on. He didn't make many mistakes. I thought every other throw was a good decision throw. I didn't think he threw a lot. I don't even remember a throw that he threw that I thought was a bad decision. This Minnesota Vikings defense was all over every single play, but I don't think Daniel Jones had a bad pass, and I don't even think that interception was necessarily a bad throw in the 4th quarter. But I thought it was just more of a better play by Barr, diving, because he had to dive for that interception. It wasn't like that interception came right into his hands. And also, that interception was meaningless anyways because it was in the 4th quarter, and the game was essentially out of reach anyways. We were down 18. But this offensive line needs to do better. Because, Thursday night, we're going to face the New England Patriots, and one thing that Bill Belichick is good at doing is exploiting your weaknesses. Not only is Bill Belichick and that coaching staff good at continuously exploiting other teams' weaknesses, they're also good at taking your strength and identifying your strength and taking that away in the ballgame. So definitely looking for a better improvement for next week, because 4 sacks and 8 quarterback hits is not excusable. So now let's talk about a couple of plays on the offense. Daniel Jones had 2 plays to Sterling Shepard that could have potentially resulted in touchdowns. The first one was down the sideline to Sterling Shepard, which was overthrown. And had Sterling Shepard caught that, that probably would have been a touchdown, if not at least maybe 20 more yards after the catch. I don't even think there was a safety over the top, because that safety ended up, and it could have been Harrison Smith, who had probably was trying to close that gap to Sterling Shepard and trying to chase that ball, but there was no one in sight. If Sterling Shepard would have caught that ball, he would have ran straight to the end zone. So that was another 6 points missed. Secondly, there was a throw to Sterling Shepard wide open again in the end zone, and this is where no defender was in reach. But he overthrows it severely. Sterling Shepard has to jump, but there's no way for Sterling Shepard to even bring down both feet. Sterling Shepard was able to bring down 1 foot as he was coming down, because this was a play where Sterling Shepard had to reach very high for the ball, but as he was coming down, he was sort of coming down horizontally. His body was horizontal, so there was no way for Sterling Shepard to really sort of manage and manually sort of bring both of his feet down. The ball was just too overthrown, and that was another 6 points given up. So we're talking about essentially 2 touchdowns that were left off the board. So now what we had 28-10 game. Think about it. That's another 12 points. That's 22-28. And now I'm going to assume that we make those 2 extra points. That's 28-24. Right? I mean, these are points that we have to make. Daniel Jones, I know you're a rookie and you're going to make mistakes, but rookie quarterbacks, good quarterbacks in the NFL, can find open wide receivers and hit them on the money, hit them on the numbers, and be accurate. Daniel Jones, you've been accurate when there's tough coverage. You got to be accurate when there's no coverage. On 2 instances, you overthrow Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard's 5 catches for 49 yards could have ended up resulting in maybe 7 catches for 100 yards if those 2 plays end up nailing and falling. So just big misses by Daniel Jones. Those are tough to swallow. It's hard to come back from those, and these are some of the growing pains that we're going to have to deal with. But he didn't overthrow Sterling Shepard twice because he's a rookie. He just overthrew him because that's what quarterbacks do. How many times has Eli Manning overthrown a wide receiver or completely miss a wide receiver, not even within the vicinity? At least with those two overthrown balls, Sterling Shepard had a chance to make a play on him. The ball hit Sterling Shepard's hands. So not again, those type of throws hurt our team because you got to make those. But I just want everyone to sort of calm down and not place, the loss on those two throws. The football team loses together, and Daniel Jones, other than those two throws, didn't really make any other big mistakes. And then I want to talk about that I think it was a 4th and 12. Daniel Jones finds Sterling Shepard deep on a one-on-one coverage against Xavier Rhodes. Oh no, actually I believe it was Mike Hughes. And he just misses the ball. Sterling Shepard gets inside leverage on Mike Hughes, jumps for the ball, pops right out of his pads. The ball hits him right in the numbers. That's a ball you have to bring down, Sterling Shepard. We just gave you a contract extension in the offseason. We traded OBJ comfortable enough that you were going to be our number one wide receiver. Number one wide receivers make those plays week in and week out. That was just inexcusable. You got to come down with that ball. Because he comes down with that ball, and then that's a game changer. That's a momentum shifter, and that keeps us in the game. But that ball, that was a turnover on downs, and that officially sort of ended the game for the New York Giants and officially ended any chances of the New York Giants making a comeback. So pretty upset on those two plays. But overall, just to summarize my take on the offense, poor protection on Daniel Jones, not enough creativity. Obviously, we did lose Wayne Gallman, so we were forced to be one-dimensional, and the usage of our wide receivers wasn't as well as I would have liked. There were, again, 3 plays that we missed on that we should have had and that we should have hit on that could have potentially changed the outcome of this game. And these things definitely need to be fixed in next week's matchup this Thursday night against the New England Patriots. And now on to this New York Giants defense. This defense did not have a good game. This defense gave up 28 points. Kirk Cousins was 22 of 27, threw for 306 yards and threw 2 touchdowns. Those 2 touchdowns were to one receiver, Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen had seven catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those 7 catches came on 8 targets. You want to talk about efficiency? That's efficiency. They found Adam Thielen in space. Adam Thielen caught the ball, had a lot of yards after the catch. Some of those yards after the catch also created first downs. He also created some missed tackles, some bad angles taken by our DBs and linebackers to create first downs for Adam Thielen and company. And then also Dalvin Cook, who was probably the MVP of the game, 21 rushes for 132 yards. And then he also had 6 receptions for 86 yards, and those 6 receptions were on 6 targets. Man, Dalvin Cook in the first half, I think he had about 11 carries for 43 yards. I thought overall we played a decent first half from a run defense standpoint. I thought we were able to contain Dalvin Cook. He didn't have too many big run plays. But from a passing perspective, he torched us all first half. I think the majority of his 6 receptions even came in the first half. He was catching the ball in the middle of the field and then running up the sideline. Our linebackers just could not catch up to him. We gave up so many yards after the catch, and the reason why is because we couldn't tackle these guys. Our defense was missing tackles left and right. That has to be an emphasis in this week's practice. We have 3 days to fix up our tackling, our technique, our pursuit, and our recovery when we're losing against these running backs and wide receivers early in our route progressions. We got burnt today. And the reason why we got burnt and gave up so many yardage, we gave up 490 yards. You know what? When people look at 490 yards, they don't look at it as 490 yards. They look at it as 500 yards, okay? So our defense gave up 500 yards. And most of it was because we couldn't bring the guys down on our first hit. We couldn't bring down the opposing offensive players. Our defense has to do better. And, this is in large in part because we had some injuries. We lost 3 linebackers. Lorenzo Carter. I think Tate Davis was inactive, and then obviously everyone knows about Ryan Connolly. And then, to make things worse, we traded away B.J. Goodson for a late-round pick right before the season started to the Green Bay Packers. Guys, this is not, the Giants sort of do these boneheaded moves and trades without thinking about depth at the position. So, We just gave up too many big plays, and the defense was just non-existent compared to the last couple of weeks where we had a good amount of quarterback hits and quarterback sacks. Our front seven was nowhere near to be found. We had 3 quarterback hits and 3 sacks, and I like 3 sacks. I'll take 3 sacks any given week. 3 to 5 sacks is a good day from a sack productive standpoint for a front seven, but 3 quarterback hits is not. Kirk Cousins had a lot of time to throw, and that's why he was 22 for 27. Kirk Cousins wasn't never really under pressure that much, and that's why he was able to stay in the pocket and look for his wide receivers to get open. The routes were progressing. I think he hit maybe up to 6 different wide receivers at one point. Even some of the rookies were getting involved, the rookie tight ends and rookie wide receivers. We just did not have a good day on defense. I mean, there were a couple of times where, I thought Jabril Peppers played a great game. I even thought DeAndre Baker played a good game. I know DeAndre Baker gave up that touchdown in the end zone to Adam Thielen, but even when DeAndre Baker was falling down on that touchdown, I thought he was still playing some pretty decent tight coverage. Adam Thielen's a hard card. He's a hard guard. He's a hard cover. I thought DeAndre Baker made some pretty decent plays, some pretty good tackles here or there as well. I thought, for the most part, DeAndre Baker, Jabril Peppers had a good game. Dexter Lawrence and Marcus Golden had a pretty good game as well. But, overall, this defense was non-existent. They were non-existent. I mean, we just gave up too many first downs. And a lot of those first downs came on pass plays. In the first half, the big theme was the New York Giants could not defend the pass, and they couldn't stop Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook barely touched the surface from a run game standpoint because he only had about 40 yards receiving. So that means we ended up giving up 80 rushing yards in the second half to one running back. It's unacceptable. We have to do a better job of doing that. And I said this last week. I've even tweeted this out, and I even posted an Instagram post about this. The way the New York Giants defense is going to be successful is if we were able to contain Dalvin Cook and force Kirk Cousins to throw more. But because we couldn't stop Dalvin Cook, I mean, granted, in the first half, it was a pretty decent run defense output, but we still couldn't stop him because out of the backfield, Dalvin Cook was just tearing it up. Dalvin Cook is the reason why this Minnesota Vikings offense moves the way it moves, even from a pass game standpoint, because they're allowed to be two-dimensional. They threw for 27 times and rushed for 21 times. And actually, no, they rushed for more than 21 times because the 21 rushes were only from Dalvin Cook. And I'll actually pull up the stat line now of how many times they ran. I think they may have even ran more than they passed more. I just need a second. I'm actually going to pull that up right now for you guys. In fact, the Minnesota Vikings, they ran 34 times for 211 yards. Kirk Cousins only threw for 27 times. So they ran more than what Kirk Cousins threw for. We gave up almost 500 yards of offense. 200 of those yards were on the ground. That's inexcusable. James Bettcher made no adjustments, no personnel shifts. Dalvin Cook had a great first half from a receiving standpoint and had a decent rushing game in the first half as well. He went 11 for 43 yards. That's a little over 4 yards per carry. He made no adjustments because in the second half, Dalvin Cook had an even bigger rushing game. Same thing with Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen had a great first half, even had a touchdown in the first half. In the second half, Adam Thielen wreaks even more havoc and gets his second touchdown. These are the things I don't understand. If the current personnel is not working, why don't you move some people around? You have Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne who had pretty good preseasons. I mean, especially for Corey Ballantyne, who had a great preseason, who was the name coming out of that preseason. That was the main story that everyone wants to see playing. And Julian Love is supposed to be the guy that's going to replace Antoine Bethea. So how are these guys supposed to live up to the hype that the New York Giants staff is telling us about, but they get no burn and they get no playing time? I mean, my God, let's play these guys. That's the difference between the New York Giants and other organizations. Other organizations play their young guys and let them make mistakes and let them learn. The only guy that starts is DeAndre Baker and Dexter Lawrence because they're first-round picks? I mean, that's inexcusable. Play these guys. If they mess up, they mess up. We saw DeAndre Baker get burned the first 2 games, and ever since then, his name barely gets called. You almost forget that DeAndre Baker is even on the field because he barely gets burned anymore. He hasn't gotten burned or legitimately torched in the last 3 games. Maybe that's something that happens with Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne, where maybe they struggle in the beginning, but they end up picking it back up. The same way that Baker did. Absolutely no adjustments or realignment and reshifting the focus on other players. Moving some players around. It's the same thing over and over again. And that's what drives me nuts about James Bettcher, and sort of similar to what I said about Pat Shurmur. I feel like these coaches have a game plan and they have a playbook, and they expect all their players to sort of fall in line with what their expectation is instead of the other way around. I feel like these coaches aren't taking a step back and sort of re-looking at the roster and catering their playbook and their schemes to the roster. Now, by no means am I saying let's rethink about this 3-4 hybrid defense that we have. I think the defense is fine. But you also have to shift players in and out. Give other players some burn. Give other players some playing time. It just absolutely drives me nuts. No adjustments whatsoever in the second half or either all game because we got torched all game. This has to change, and this has to change quickly because we have 3 days to fix it. Because we're going to face a high-powered, high-octane New England Patriot offense on the road in Foxborough. And we're going to face Tom Brady, who's obviously as good as ever. They have a healthy Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman. They have a pretty good, decent set of running backs back there. We're going to have to do something about this. James Bettcher needs to game plan and needs to show that he can make in-game adjustments. And he has. He did a great job against the Dallas Cowboys in the second half when we limited them. Because the Dallas Cowboys in the first game did most of their damage in the first half. We showed adjustments in that game in the second half. Same thing with the Bills, and then the same thing with the Buccaneers. The Redskins is sort of a standalone situation because our defense shut them out the whole game. But in today's game against the Vikings, I knew this was going to be a tough matchup. Because the Vikings have talent at every single position all over the field. They don't have any weaknesses on that offense. If anything, I feel like Kirk Cousins is probably the one that usually gets them out of games. But Kirk Cousins is still nevertheless a good quarterback. But, I mean, come on, James Bettcher. You need to call these games better. 28 games in 4 of our 5 games. 28 points in 4 of our 5 games. Inexcusable. I mean, I can only imagine how many points the New England Patriots are going to put up. This has to change. They did really well against the Washington Redskins defense, who I would argue is better than the New York Giants defense. So what's that leave for us? It's concerning because we only have 3 days to fix this. And I don't know if Lorenzo Carter is going to be better by then. I don't know if, Saquon Barkley is going to come off a high ankle sprain. And I don't know if he's going to be fully healthy. I mean, he's expected to play. We looked at some of that footage where it looked like he was jogging and he was taking some cuts and he looked good. But no one truly knows how that ankle is until he actually gets hit a couple of times. Now, with that said, Wayne Gallman may not even come back in time for Thursday night. So who's going to be the backup to Saquon Barkley? John Hillman? Eli Penny? Great. That's just great. And I want to talk about this New England Patriots game. Because I'm done now talking about how bad the New York Giants played and how bad that coaching staff was. This is going to be a tough game. And I want to take us back where I did a week-by-week, game-by-game prediction. Several episodes ago, I did a week-by-week, game-by-game prediction. I'm going to take a recap from week 1. I'm going to do it really quickly to save everyone some time. I had us losing against the Dallas Cowboys. This was again during the preseason, or I believe right before the preseason had started. I had us losing against the Dallas Cowboys, and we did. I had us losing against the Buffalo Bills, and we did. So we were 0-2. And I was actually right on those 2 predictions. So I had us going 0-2, and we were. And then in that same episode, I had us actually getting our first victory against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we actually did. So we ended up going 1-2. And then believe it or not, in that same episode, I had us losing against the Minnesota Vikings. Because I thought it was a tough matchup, and I knew it was going to be a tough matchup. But then last week, I had changed my mind because what I mentioned is that my prediction is going to be adaptive throughout the season. Depending on how I see the Giants playing football based off of how they're doing on the offense and the defensive side of the football, I'm going to maybe change up my predictions. So I actually changed my preseason prediction and had them winning against the Minnesota Vikings, but unfortunately we lost that. So now we're 2-3. Excuse me, I know I missed over the Washington Redskins game. I had us beating the Redskins. and continuing a 2-game winning streak, but then losing against Minnesota. Even though last week I had expected us to be the Minnesota Vikings because I thought we were rolling both on offense and defense, but I was wrong in changing my prediction. So now we're 2-3, and in preseason I think I had us being the New England Patriots, just given how good we've been playing against the Patriots over the last couple of years. This was not, this was before the whole Daniel Jones thing. This is just taken into consideration as I thought at this point in time, maybe our defense would have gotten it together. I thought Eli Manning was going to have a better year than he actually started off with. And I also didn't expect Tom Brady and this New England Patriots offense and defense to be sort of as good as they are. Usually, obviously, look, the New England Patriots are good every single year. But I think this is the best we've seen this New England Patriots on both sides of the ball in a very long time. And unfortunately, I have us losing to the New England Patriots this Thursday. I think there's similar to the Minnesota Vikings, they have a good enough set of weapons at the wide receiver position with Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman, and even Philip Dorsett. And then they have a pretty good group of running backs. They have Sony Michel. I think they still have Rex Burkhead, Brandon Bolden. They have a pretty good offensive line. And then you have Tom Brady under center. Who's going to stop Tom Brady under center? Let's really be honest here, folks. Tom Brady is having a lights-out year once again. He had a bad game against the Buffalo Bills, but a lot of people have bad games against that Buffalo Bills defense. Other than that, he's been lights out. And let's be honest, our secondary is not ready for Tom Brady right now. We haven't shown that much big of an improvement for me to say and me to be confident enough to think that they can stop the New England Patriots. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they just do everything right. They have enough people at every sort of section of the defensive side of the ball. They have enough talent at the front, from front seven perspective, and they have enough talent in the secondary for DBs. And unless Pat Shurmur can get creative with this play call, I think we can wreak some havoc in the middle of the field and in that secondary. Because I think with the exception of Stephon Gilmore, I'm not worried about any other cornerback playing lockdown defense. I think we can work around Stephon Gilmore and the McCourty brothers. Their linebackers are pretty tough, so I think we may have some trouble running the football. Also, Saquon Barkley is coming off of a high ankle sprain. Just a little concerning there. And then again, this is a rookie quarterback under the bright lights. Thursday night football, road game, Foxborough. I just think it's too much for the New York Giants to handle at this point. And again, unfortunately, I just do see us losing. I think we're going to give up too many points. And I don't know if we can score enough points against this defense. Folks, that about wraps it up. That was episode 24 of the Unsportsmanlike Conduct Podcast. Again, please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram. That's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. I'm also on Twitter now, so everyone, please follow me on Twitter. That's _unsportsman. It's your boy HP. Peace out. Until next time.